Hello my friends, I'm here today to show you how to turn these 4 kinds of Lego plate into this. Now this fascinating and somewhat impossibly flexible little design is really employing 2 different kind of hinging techniques, which I'll show you. The first is the thing I probably use the most in my hinged builds, and that's where you cross these 2 plates at one point so that you get that limited range of motion in terms of angles you can create. And the other thing is when you connect them right there on the end, and I'll add another one in here just for stability. And that gives you a much greater angle that you can play with. So I'm going to be using both of these in this build. And as was suggested by Mattify Guy on TikTok, I am going to do so by using different colors for the different plates. So let's get started. Now we're going to build this in quadrants. So this is the first quadrant, so 1 of 4. And each quadrant is going to require 2 1x2s, 3 1x6s, 6 1x8s, and 3 1x10s. Now first up, I'm going to grab 2 of my 1x10s, and I am going to create a point, just like that. And then with 2 1x8s, I'm going to create a little inset square, leaving 2 studs of that 1x10 on each side hanging over. Now this is where I'm going to get the prime flexibility in terms of turning this shape into a diamond or not. And since 1 square is just a little bit boring, we are going to use 1x6s to create a second square inside. Now, you can see I still have that flexibility there to create my diamond shape. And I'm going to add 2 more 1x8s to create 1 more square. Make sure those are all nice and tight, and you see I still have that hinging that I'm looking for. Now I'm going to sneak in a couple of 1x2s here just to add a little interior support, but I also want to make sure I still have space to hinge. And then I'm going to add another 1x6 to kind of close that off, and another 1x8 to top that one off as well. And that still leaves me a 1x8 and a 1x10, and I'm going to need these later. So putting these aside, I'm going to do that 4 more times. And from here, it's pretty simple. I'm going to connect the squares right there. And then once they're connected, I am going to add the rest of that 3rd layer all the way around. Make sure that's nice and tight. So now the hinging that I had with those original squares is still there. So that's the basic hinging, but I can now hinge, if I can execute that to stay, I can now get this to hinge on those midpoints as well. So it lets me do all sorts of weird and crazy things with this. Now, like everything that you hinge, as you hinge it back and forth, the pieces are going to get looser and looser and they'll start to pop off. So you want to make sure you're always putting that down and tightening things up. And that is how you build a hinging square. Thanks for watching, my friends, and I'll catch you with the next episode of Brickbending.